I think the best way that I could characterize what's really excited me about this project is that it's so different from the last one. We just came off of Cataclysm, where we had to take a world we all love and destroy it. With Pandaria, we have almost a return to the wonder of discovering a new place.
To introduce a land of peace and beautiful characters and characters that have wisdom and insight is really nice to work on, because it really couldn't come at a more appropriate time.
With this expansion, I really feel like we're giving the players something that I know that they want to see. The race, the characters, the zones expanded upon. That just feels awesome, because to me, it feels like a slam dunk. They can't help but like it.
The game has been out for quite a while, and so there's a lot of people who really know what the sound of WoW is. And so I think the most difficult thing is to make sure that every sound that you put in there actually fits into the world.
So with that comes an extremely large amount of content and a large responsibility for all of us to tell the story well, fluidly, and beautifully.
As is everything at Blizzard, it's a team effort, and it's been just a really rewarding process.
So there's three main components that sound is usually thinking about going into a game. We have the sound design, the VO, and the music.
Well, as always, the game itself is our number one inspiration. And it starts with the concept art, it starts with the lore. It's all provided a backdrop for our musical storytelling.
So when our composers are preparing to record music for a game, they do a concept session, not unlike concept art.
In trying to come up with what the palette would be, if you will, for the music, we made a few assumptions early on. And one of those was that we wanted an Asian overlay, but wanted to maintain this sense of a film score style, an epic feeling that permeates the rest of Azeroth.
Yeah, I saw a lot of the levels, the areas that the players were going to be walking around in, and it was just gorgeous. And I immediately got ideas as to what I wanted to do, to try to kind of create a whole new world sonically to go with the visual.
We listened to film scores, we listened to things that we liked, and among them, there was a mini-series called Wild China that was very influential to us.
The Last Emperor, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Hero.
The Last Samurai was an excellent example. I mean, Hans Zimmer really successfully melded in all these authentic instruments.
As far as the instruments go and where we found out about them, a lot of the stuff I had heard in other music, but I hadn't actually worked with the instruments before.
The way we used instruments from a Chinese heritage was to just help us add that overlay, that feel on top of the Warcraft sound that made it specific to Pandaria. So we learned a lot about not only how to write for those specific instruments, but how to be more agile and flexible in terms of thinking differently in our writing.
So there was a lot of research involved and understanding the ranges of the instruments and what sounded best with them.
For the Erhu, the pipa, the guzhong, and the dizi, they have certain limitations which are not limitations at all. It's just the way the instrument has been. And so you've got us movie score fans writing from the lowest low to the highest high, make it soar. Yeah, this instrument doesn't play those notes.
So it was a lot of fun to dive into it and learn about them.
Melding that Asian overlay of instrumentation with a Western writing style is sometimes a bit of a challenge to make that fit.
We've been recording with the Northwest Symphonia and Chorus in Seattle since the Burning Crusade. It's a great experience, it's a great orchestra.
We record the music in this deconsecrated chapel that's now part of a university. So it has a architecture that's got a lot of stone and a lot of wood. The ceiling is 62 feet tall, I believe. So it's a very reverberant space. There's a lot of character that's added to the recording from the room itself.
The best part of the process is getting to hear the orchestra play the music for the first time. Been slaving over it for months. And finally you get there and hear everyone play it, and it's just the best part because it takes it so much further.
Since it was once a chapel, my connection is that it's an old sound. It's a sound that I think is as timeless as we want World of Warcraft to be.
So one of the main components of the music is the choral element.
Along with the orchestra, we recorded a 32-voice choir. We record the choir 3 times to give the effect of 96 voices, but with each successive pass, we use microphones that are further away, which adds a depth and detail without losing clarity.
Sometimes when we record, we record things in sections, so we're able to isolate certain things, certain sounds. Not quite a traditional approach, it's not like you would record classical music, but in our case, just because we're approaching it a little differently, a little bit different of a sound, we'll tend to record things in different sections.
There's a process towards the end of the musical project for any of the games, and that is the final mix. That's all the tracks, and they all come together, and it's all got to feel like the Warcraft universe. The mixing process is the last step and the last opportunity to adjust for that. One of the things that's really helped me in doing this part of the project is I work closely with the sound designers.
We put a lot of effort and time into the sound design, which goes into the games.
The World of Warcraft design team does come to us and give us direction and input on how they want their game to sound.
The collaboration process with sound and the game teams is very organic, very creative.
We didn't really have any restraints in the sound design.
I think they kind of leave it up to us to let us work our creative magic, and then we'll put it in the game, and hopefully everyone's happy with it.
Typically we start with the ambience. It's kind of the base coat for a zone and for an area. Kind of sets the mood and the immersion.
These sounds never stop. It's the one part of the soundtrack that is always playing.
With the ambiences this time around, because again, they're farmers and masons and jewelers, we wanted all of Pandaria, the new zones in the expansion, to sound like something that you would hear on a really awesome vacation, essentially.
I tried to add a lot of calming wind and water. It's just about in everything, because this expansion is very calming. Everything about it's not so in your face and aggressive as especially our last one.
A lot of the ambiences were actually, built from scratch, so they weren't recorded from one location, but they were sort of comprised of a lot of sounds.
We don't have any bamboo forests in Irvine, and so we contacted people that had those resources and then utilized those recordings in our own design for Mists of Pandaria.
Got to go to botanical gardens and record some of their waterfalls, some of their exotic birds, and then just essentially build kits from that.
Flavor kits within the ambience itself. And what it allows us to do is actually have unique one-shot sounds play at random distance at random times. An example of how we would use this is take the hose and monkey sounds, put them through reverb processing, make them sound like they're far off in the distance.
Each one of the classes sort of has its own sonic identity. Part of the process was to keep the sound design specifically for the monk class as visceral and as organic as possible.
The fighting style of the monk is very different than some of the other classes, and we really spent a lot of time trying to make them feel unique and different.
So we did a huge Foley session. We did swishes, whooshes, whirls, anything that had a martial arts characteristic to it.
We took the sound of their clothing and added it to the actual movements and attacks.
Even though they're a leather-wearing class, that's sort of the characteristic that makes martial arts movies really exciting. You hear that cloth, when someone throws a punch, you hear that kung fu kind of snappy sound. A lot of times when we're designing a sound, the actual real-world equivalent of that sound doesn't work. So sometimes you have to pull, from other sources to kind of embellish. We went to the grocery store and bought a ton of, vegetables and fruit.
We did a Foley session with some vegetables. Pretty much just kind of smashed them against each other and kind of grind them against each other, and we got these interesting squeaks and rips and tears.
Where we took a head of cabbage and ripped each leaf, and it sounded like electricity. That ended up being the main layer for the crackling jade lightning. That same session got us a good palette of source to use for the monk impacts, like 2 cabbage heads, like banging together, like make for some really great sounding body blows. We used cabbage a lot.
And you throw that together with some animals, and then you get a really unique individual sound for the game.
The monk class is fun, and that's what we're trying to convey.
Forget injuries. Never forget kindnesses.
It's been quite a challenge for Mr. Pandaria, casting-wise, to find voices. I need to find talking fish people, talking tigers, talking serpents, talking praying mantis, talking rabbits, talking yaks.
We did something a little different in this expansion that, to my knowledge, we haven't done in the past, is we actually got a lot more VO actors to come in and perform it.
One of the things that we benefited from for sound design was that actually the project went SAG. And so we were able to get some voice talent to actually do some vocalizations for some of our creatures.
I feel that going SAG on Mists of Pandaria has definitely changed the dynamic of how we work.
And it's really allowed us to make some of the creatures and some of the characterizations through voice more interesting and better in this expansion than we've seen in the past.
We're really blessed and fortunate. It makes our jobs easier that we have such good material to work with to kind of hone into making these creatures.
So when choosing the sound for a character, we do a lot of pre-planning. For example, we'll have a race called Jinyu, which are the talking fish people. So we will get together and identify who are these people? Who are they both as a race? What do they represent? How does a talking koi fish fight?
That way, when it comes time to bring the voice actors in, we can kind of give them, okay, this is what the team is thinking.
But then once our specs hit the actors, a whole new level comes into it, because we start with what we want in our head, but really not until you get that perfect fish person in the booth do you get the true beauty and inner workings of your fish people.
We kind of let them bring their acting ability and their techniques to the session, and then let them kind of like go for it, and we kind of steer them onto target until we actually define the voice, and we go, oh, that's it, that's perfect.
I think one of the most amazing actors I got to work with so far is our actor Keone Young, who plays Chen Stormstout.
The true question is, what is worth fighting for?
Chen Stormstout is a very important character because he alone really represents all that's beautiful and wonderful about the Pandaren. Keone is an amazing actor who's been in the industry for a very long time. His Asian background and his Asian culture really breathed life into Chen Stormstout. That was amazing.
Why would I want to feel skinny? Size is strength.
Beautiful. Great, Keone, moving right along to line 22. So to us, we're working with that actor and bringing Chen Stormstout to life really came together in a way that we didn't expect. It was really fun to get this robust, interesting, funny, warm, powerful character created right in front of us with Keone's help.